Are you set up for failure when you are released from jail? I'm going to kind of go over my experience, and I'm going to give some advice and some tips of what I would do. This last time that I was released, I had made it clear to my probation officer that I didn't have nowhere to live. And I couldn't have made it sound any worse for her saying that, I'll have no money, I'll have nothing. I'll have no transportation, I'll have no housing. Now, she came and visited me twice, once about a month before my release, and then again 2 weeks before my release, to where she was going to be looking into halfway houses, transition houses, some different places where I could stay. And when she came up for that 2 weeks out, she told me that all the halfway houses are full, all the transition houses, everything was full up. She couldn't get me into anywhere. And she's like, do you have any friends or anything that you could stay with? And I'm like, at the time, I had no friends. My family, there's no way any of my family was going to let me stay with them. And, the trust just wasn't there, and we weren't really talking. And I told her, I was like, I don't have anywhere to go. So we're kind of at a stalemate. So it's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And she kind of left it at like, you're going to have to find a homeless shelter. And now, knowing at the time, I'm from Waukesha, Wisconsin, and this is a probation officer that is in that county. How hard would it be to list like, here's these 2 homeless shelters that you can go to. All you got to do is show up at the front door, tell them, they'll let you in. They have open spots, give you directions. Because, I had no clue where to go. I didn't know where the homeless shelters were. I didn't know any of this stuff. Luckily, I had an aunt and uncle that had just bought a new house, and they had a vacant house, and they were going to be putting it on the market. And they let me stay inside that house. I had like a little blow-up mattress that I put in one of the bedrooms, and I slept in there. But the fact still remains that, one of the main things that you should be, have figured out, and something that you should have when you leave jail, is a place to live. A place to live and something to eat. If you say, I don't have any money, I don't have anything, they basically just send you on your way. Like, you're just going to have to figure this shit out. And for somebody who doesn't know how to figure stuff out, or somebody who's not like a go-getter, it's going to be so easy to just fall back into a trap of bad ways. It's so hard to go straight, and it's so hard to do good when you get out of jail and you have so much on your plate and there's not a lot of support for you and you have no clue what to do. So if I can paint a picture, I was released, and they give you a lot of things. So like me personally, I had a lot of things that I had to do that were court ordered. So obviously I had to pay my probation fees, and I had to pay like my court fees. So which means like you have to get a job. But for my weekly tasks, I got something called day report. And day report is something that I had to do 3 days a week. 3 days a week for, I believe it was 12 weeks. So 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have to go to, it was like located right behind the jail. And you check in there, and you're able to, they ask you like, have you been able to get employment? Do you need to make a resume? And it was somewhat helpful, like if you didn't know how to make a resume, or you wanted to put some like applications in, it was good. But for somebody trying to find a job, I had no transportation, I had no money, and I had to go do this thing 3 days a week. So 3 days a week from like, let's say whatever, like I had to check in there between like 1 and like 5 o'clock. You had to go in there and you had to check in, tell them everything that's going on. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I wasn't doing that, Tuesdays and Thursdays, for the first couple months, I had to meet with my PO twice a week. So then I had to go to the PO's office, and I'm just literally walking everywhere. And I got released, I think like September, so like winter was coming up. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday was for day report. Tuesday and Thursday I had to go meet with my PO. And then every single day that I woke up, I had to call what was called a color line. So the color line is something where like you're issued a color. So like whatever it might be, like whatever, I don't know what mine was, like indigo or something, whatever. You call this hotline and they'll list off like 10 random colors, whatever it may be. And if your color's called, you have between, I forgot what it was. You had like a certain section of hours that morning that you had to come in and you had to do a drug test. It was completely random. Completely randomized. I think it turned out to like maybe like once a week, twice a week, I think my color was called, and I had to go, do a drug test. And this is all great, like it kept me on track. It kept me, busy and things that I had to do. But for someone who doesn't have transportation, somebody who wants to find a job, and 5 days a week, sometimes 6-7 days a week, if they call your color on the weekend, it goes into the weekend too. Like you have to go do this stuff. Trying to find a job was completely hard, especially, as a felon, you don't have a phone, so you can't call anybody. You can't give your employers any phone numbers, to call back. You don't have an address. You don't have any money. And your times in which you can work are so minimized because you have to do all this shit during the week. So trying to find a job is like fucking hopefully you get lucky kind of shit. So I ended up looking around. I ended up I was talking to a few people. I went to the library, I got on the internet, and it just so happened that you were able to get what they called like a government phone. I don't even remember what they called it. I think like people in like jail or like people were calling it like the Obama phone or something. Like I don't know what it was. That was, like I said, this was like 2012 or 13, years ago. And you could literally go online and you could set everything up, and they would send you just a regular phone, like one of like the old school phones, like just to be, you couldn't text on the thing, but you could get phone calls, and whatever it was, maybe like, I don't know, 500 minutes or like 250 minutes, something small, like a month. But at least then you could start calling jobs. You could start, checking back on jobs, giving jobs phone numbers for you to call them. And besides not having a phone, you don't have any money, and you have to eat. And it's hard to find a job, and you need some food. So you have to just think. You got to figure out what you're going to do. Now you can go online, you can get a food card. I know that some cities you can go in person and actually sign up and get your food card when you walk out. If you don't have access to that, then you'll have to end up doing it over like the library internet, and they'll send you a card. But until that happens, you got to figure out, who's serving hot meals. Now there's like a place in Waukesha, Wisconsin called the Hope Center, and the Hope Center is people that help out like the homeless. They help all types of things, anything across the board. A lot of cities have places like this. Your best bet is to go to the internet and Google, what local places help the homeless, like in my area. And finding that place is like gold. You can find out what day of the week it is, who's serving hot meals here and there. And you can figure out like, hey, like if you need toiletries, if you need, whatever, underwear, whatever it is, they can help you out with it. And they were doing stuff working with St. Vincent de Paul, which is kind of like a donation place where like they resell stuff. But if you were going to go to like an interview and you didn't have a suit, you could go there and the Hope Center would give you a coupon to go to St. Vincent de Paul to get a suit. All these little things that like you don't have that you can't figure out. How can you get transportation? I know that St. Vincent de Paul in my area, they did free bikes. If you were homeless, you needed transportation. Because you need places, you need ways to get around. There's stuff out there, guys. And a lot of this stuff's, you know, after the fact, after I've gone through it, like, I just can't believe how easy it would be for probation officers to just put down, like, just one sheet of sources, you know? What's one thing, you know, that has a list of everything on it? Like, here's the homeless shelters in the area. This is their address. This is their phone number. Here's the website you can go to if you don't have a phone. You can get a phone. Here's how you obtain a food card. Here's where you can get hot meals. These are all super simple things that, you know, the probation office could put together for you that would make things so easy. They just literally give you a piece of paper, and here's everything you need. Oh, you don't have any underwear. You don't have a way for you to brush your teeth. You don't have this or that. You need a suit. You need a polo or whatever, like just nice clothes where you can go do an interview. You need a bike. You need this. You need that. You could sum it down to like 15 things, 15 to 20 things to put down on a piece of paper. And now I'm working on something right now where I can put the link, you know, for people getting released in the Waukesha area or within my state, you know, where people can go see these sources all in one. It's not like you're just trying to figure shit out along the way. You know, if you want to set somebody up for success, you know, you got to fucking people need a little bit of a help, you know. If you're just set out there, just fucking figure it out, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin, especially for addicts, especially for, you know, repeat criminals, people that don't know how to live life in a legal manner, or people that are struggling. Like, the one thing that you should be focusing on is your sobriety, staying out of trouble, and the things that we take for granted, like the most basic of things, like housing, food, toiletries, all that stuff. It's out there. You can source it, you know, but you have to be a go-getter to get that stuff. And it's kind of like a catch-22 thing, right? Because for me, since I had to do all that legwork, I had to do all that stuff. I had to ride my bike through the winter to go to this day report 3 days a week. I had to ride my bike through the winter to go to job interviews. I had to ride my bike through the winter to go see my PO, to go to the color line and drug test. I had to do all this stuff, and it made me stronger of a person, and it made me, you know, proud of achieving what I did, you know. However, not everything works out that way. There's plenty of people that, you know, are going to hit a wall, and they're going to say, well, fuck it, I guess I'm going to go fucking shoplift, or I guess I'm going to go do this. And the cruel truth is that a lot of people that are locked up don't know how to live life right? So I got lucky, you know, I had a good childhood. I know how to live right. You know, I had good examples of, like, how to follow the law, how to do this, how to do that. I knew right from wrong. But a lot of the people that I was locked up didn't have that example. You know, they don't see the world as I do. You know, they never had a good example of that stuff. Like, I knew it was what was right is wrong. And not to say that they don't know the difference between right and wrong, but for people like that don't, you know, they don't know what lifestyle to push through, when their back's against the wall and they're hungry and they don't have something or they don't have money, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go shoplift. They're going to go steal. They're going to go pick up some drugs and start flipping drugs. Or maybe they'll just, if you're an addict, you just fucking give up. This is too much. You know, there's people all across the board, you know, like, there are some strong people that are going to make it through that. And then there's a lot of people that are going to fold. And we're supposed to be helping people. You know, we're supposed to be changing lives. This is what, you know, the whole purpose of being locked up is, like, rehabilitating people. It's just, maybe there's some programs when you're locked up in prison or jail that, you know, you could be rehabilitated, you can get knowledge and stuff. But when you're sent out to the streets, man, you're fucking sent out. And if you don't have any money, You don't have transportation. You don't have a phone. You don't have any friends. You don't have any family. You know, the chances of your success are really fucking low. And it's fucking sad. Guys, whenever you're like, if you're getting released from jail and you're in a tough situation, you know, and anybody ever needs help, you know, send me a message. Comment down below. You know, comment your city, state. Write down any sources that you have. You know, all this stuff's available to you. A lot of people, you can get to the library, you can get on the computer. Search for it, you know. I know a lot of people are strong, like, I don't want a fucking handout. It's like, they're there for a reason. And when you need them, you should fucking take them, you know. Because everything is stacked against you when you get out of jail. You could use any help that you can get, and you should fucking take it. 100%. Now, once you get a job and you have income coming in, you know, get off that shit. You know, that's where it becomes a problem, where, like, you're abusing the system. And I know, like, when I ended up getting money, and I was used to my food card, and I was used to my phone, and I was used to getting toiletries from the Hope Center, and I was used to getting underwear from there, and you got to start paying for that stuff. Eventually, guys, you just got to bite the bullet, because, you know, you can't just take handouts forever. And I did, and I appreciate all those programs, and I appreciate everything they did for me. You just have to want to find success. You know, it's not going to be handed to you. Maybe you have like a good probation officer. You know, if your state's different, if your city and state's different, and they helped you when you got out, that's awesome. But I know out here, I can safely say that you were set up for failure. And it's fucking sad. Okay, I'm sorry. I know this is just a bunch of rambling. And it's just something that really bothers me to this day. You know, if anybody has any ideas, you know, I always wanted to put a list together for people when they were released from, like, my city, my state, that I can figure out. You know, if there's any ideas, or you guys have any other, like, sources out there where you can look stuff like across the states, you can look up cities, like all these sources that I'm talking about, you know, please comment down below. Let's figure this shit out, you know, because I think if we change the way people are released from jail, and we gave these people sources to succeed, you know, things that are available to you, things that are free, it's not doing anything illegal. If we can supply people with these things, like these key things to their success, I think we could change the way, you know, the people that, you know, reoffend. The people that, you know, there's a huge percentage of people that get out of jail and are going to be back there in a few months. If you have any suggestions, let me know. I love you guys. Have a good day.